Respected ladies and gentlemen, my name is Łucja WALIGÓRA. I represent the University of Economics in Katowice from Poland. The topic of my speech is Michael Spence's signaling theory. Hiring employees is an investment under conditions of uncertainty. Please feel free to listen to my presentation. Michael Spence first described signaling. In many markets, the employer can assess neither the employee's abilities nor their professional qualifications. An opinion about an employee can be formed over time. Therefore, employing a person is a kind of investment that is made under conditions of uncertainty due to the lack of the possibility of immediate verification of the employee's qualifications. The employer's attitude depends on how they perceive the situation, and this is what determines the offered salary conditions. However, they cannot directly observe the productivity of employees. On the other hand, the employer can see many other points, including education, work experience, gender, and race, and these must be sufficient to choose the optimal behavior. Spence's model represents an endogenous market process in which the employer receives information from a potential employee to determine the terms of employment, the offered salary, and the final work allocation among people. Beside the presentation of the Nobel laureate and his research field, the purpose of this paper is to indicate the areas inspired by the signaling theory. The paper indicates how signaling can be used in human resource management in the recruitment process as well as in the process of employee promotion or dismissing. Information asymmetry and signaling. Information asymmetry is a situation in which one party to the transaction has more information from the other party. Therefore, the scope of information available to the parties to the transaction varies. This term is sometimes used interchangeably with the terms information opacity, information imperfection, information uncertainty, and information non-transparency. Information asymmetry is an economic concept. A situation in which one party to the transaction has more information about the subject of the contract. It results in other phenomena, including adverse selection and moral hazard. Information asymmetry as a research subject in economic sciences also occurs in the context of the labor market. The functioning of the labor market where information asymmetry appears between the employer and an employee results in the salary that does not correspond to the work performed by the employee. There are also difficulties in assessing the actual capabilities of the employee and the value of their work by the employer. The first paper regarding this problem was written in 1970 by G. Akerlof and entitled, The Market of Lemons, Quality Uncertainty and the Market Mechanism. Using the example of the good and bad car market, it shows that asymmetric information can lead to a market failure. A. Michael Spence analyzed in his works the following problem: how buyers and sellers, or employers and employees, meet in the market and how they recognize the attributes of the other party under the conditions of uncertain information. In 1973, Michael Spence's work entitled Job Market Signaling was published, introducing the concept of signaling. In his work, he points out the labor market characterized by asymmetric information. Spence considers a situation of hiring an employee who, in order to prove their competence, signals their skills to a potential employer. In his groundbreaking work from 1973, Michael Spence proposed that two parties could evade information asymmetry by instructing one party to send a signal that would reveal some of the substantial information to the other party. This party would then interpret the signal and adjust their purchase behavior accordingly, usually offering a higher price than if they had not received the signal. Of course, there are many problems that these parties would have to encounter immediately. Spence's signaling theory in the labor market signaling theory initiated by Spence assumes that the employer who does not have all information about employees, asymmetry, may use information about education as a signal of high abilities, diligence or ambition. It is based on the presumption that key factors contributing to obtaining a job are diplomas and other certificates that confirm the level of competencies of an employee and probably herald high productivity. In the labor market, there is visible information asymmetry between employees and employers. The former know their values and skills, and employers do not have this knowledge, as they do not actively observe the education process. They can only expect a skill level based on a diploma, the number of years of education, and assume that the longer a person studied, the more skills they obtained and promise better productivity at work. Therefore, education is a formal test of a job seeker's intellectual resources, the purpose of which is to send a signal to a potential employer informing that the job seeker is relatively highly productive. Spence, 1973. The assumptions of signaling theory were partially empirically verified and evolved. The vertical relationship between the level of education and the labor market position was confirmed. Employers indicated the need for lower financial outlays for training such employees as the main profit from employing people with academic education, as they mastered the necessary knowledge and skills much faster than their competitors with secondary or vocational education did. They also saw the benefits of the so-called unobservable characteristics, i.e. quality, invisible characteristics, such as greater flexibility, ability to adapt rapidly, and even better health of those employees. Finally, it is also important to increase the transferability of skills developed at the level of academic education and the probability of using them in multiple activities and at different work positions. Spence found that even if education gives no benefit to employee productivity, it could still be worthwhile to both the employer and the employee. If an appropriate cost-benefit structure exists, or is established, the selected workers will obtain higher education degrees to signal their higher productivity. Certain conditions must be fulfilled for the signal to be effective. In equilibrium, the cost of education must be lower for high productivity workers and therefore signal the employer that they will pay a higher salary. In this model, it is optimal for a person with higher abilities, an observable signal, to obtain education, but not for a person with lower abilities. For balance, in order to maintain the signaling model, the employer must recognize the signal and pay the appropriate salary, and this will cause workers to sort themselves into two groups, productive and capable workers, and less productive and less capable workers. It can be observed that the cost-benefit structure must be held within certain limits for a signal to be effective. Otherwise, the system will be unsuccessful. Signaling process inspirations for human resource management. Signaling in human resource management is studied in the context of many personnel processes. For example, in the process of recruiting or promoting employees, signals can be included in the application documents of job candidates. The main question that researchers can ask here is whether and what skill signals obtained in different areas, cognitive skills, social skills and maturity, affect the employability of a given candidate. The results indicate that a wide range of signals corresponding to a given trait are valued by employers and actually increase the candidate's employability. Research has confirmed that companies that are more committed to human resource management signal more information on the subject on their websites. Such companies can attract more job candidates. Signaling information on human resource management facilitates the involvement of employees in the recruitment process. The signaling process can improve ratings given online by employees to a certain employer. Signaling is also used for employee promotions. Interesting, though possibly surprising. Conclusions about the signals sent by the employee and the employer to other market participants are quoted by Riley. The employer may refrain from both vertical promotion and salary raise and thus earn money on highly productive employees. Based on a slightly different assumption that the market, other employers, only observes the productivity of promoted employees. Milgram and Oster show that companies deriving high profits from employees with the highest productivity promote the ones with medium qualifications. Signaling can also be considered in the context of employee age diversity. According to signaling theory, asymmetric information and uncertainty cause employees to look for signals that reveal useful information on how the organization will treat them. Increasing age diversity among employees may bring uncertainty about the extent to which eliminating age discrimination and promoting employee age diversity are priorities to an organization. Signaling theory is used for online recruitment and evaluation of employees. Research has confirmed that companies that are more committed to human resource management signal more information on the subject on their websites. Such companies can attract more job candidates. Signaling information on human resource management facilitates the involvement of employees in the recruitment process. The signaling process can improve ratings given online by employees to a certain employer. Moreover, signaling can be studied in the context of an employee dismissal. Gibbons and Katz used tools typical of signaling models to solve the problem of information asymmetry in the labor market. The authors propose a different explanation than the traditional one on the reason why companies dismiss employees and according to what criteria they select candidates for dismissal. The analysis of the source literature also allows for identifying other challenges in the area of signal use that would be worth subjecting to empirical research. 1. Does the value of the signals decrease as their number increases? 2. Is there interference if the signal sender sends signals at the same time? 3. When and how often should signals be sent? 4. Can interference occur between the signals sent now, in the past and in the future? 5. How can signal senders find an effective balance between the speed and duration of a signal? 6. What actions can strengthen or weaken the signaling process? 7. How might the fraud rate affect signal reliability? 8. Are the signals less effective when the signal sender is motivated to deceive the recipient? 9. What threats may arise from signaling? 10. How can information asymmetry in human resource management be prevented? 11. Can an index, e.g. age, gender, become a signal? 12. What is considering contract theory in terms of signaling? 13. Are the signals less effective when there is an intermediary between the sender and the receiver of the signal? Conclusion. There are certain ways to reduce negative effects of information asymmetry, including the negative market selection. In the context of the labor market, the problem of information asymmetry can be solved through formal methods, certificates, accreditations, diplomas that confirm e.g. qualifications and abilities of a candidate for a job, and informal methods, knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer between older and younger employees, intermentoring. Activities enabling using the internal expert services, thus limiting information asymmetry, especially when obtaining such information on one's own is impossible or too time and cost-consuming. The above methods of limiting information asymmetry are related to so-called signaling described by Spence. Signaling takes place under conditions of information asymmetry in which the better-informed party sends signals, hence the name of the method, to the less informed party in order to induce them to behave in a certain manner. In the labor market, potential employees try to sell their services to employers for some salary or price. In general, employers are willing to pay higher salaries to employ better workers. While a worker may know their own skill level, the hiring company is not, usually, able to observe such an intangible feature, hence information asymmetry occurs between the two parties. Formal education, diplomas and certificates can be used as signals to the company, indicating certain levels of skills that a person may have and thus reducing the information gap. This is a win-win as long as the signal indicates the desired characteristic. The signal may not be as desirable. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear Sir or Madam, my name is Łucja WALIGÓRA and together with Krzysztof Wasek we represent the University of Economics in Katowice from Poland. The topic of our speech is the onboarding process in terms of multi-generational teams of employees. We invite you to listen to the presentation. Introduction. In the modern labor market there are representatives of 4 generations, baby boomers, X, Y, and Z. They differ in terms of their values, needs, motivations, lifestyle, approach towards work, communication method, etc. Each generation brings a unique set of knowledge, skills and talents to an organization. The representatives of different generations in organizations can become an important source of teamwork success, provided that it is perceived in terms of an opportunity, not a threat, both by the managers and members of various teams. It is essential to understand and respect the generational differences between employees and the appropriate use of the teamwork potential of each employed person, regardless of age, professional experience or job seniority. Therefore, the onboarding process is important, because properly conducted, it brings benefits to both newly hired employees and the entire company. Characteristics of generations. In the modern labor market, there are representatives of 4 generations, baby boomers, X, Y, and Z. Baby boomers are the generation born during the post-war baby boom. In their opinion, the best way to professional success is hard work and laborious climbing up the career ladder. Their motto is, I live to work. Their main values are obeying rules, respect for authority, solidarity and hierarchical loyalty. Modern 50-plus employees are most afraid of losing their jobs due to their age and limited knowledge of modern technology. People born after 1965 are referred to as the X generation. They are convinced that the path to professional success requires good education and appropriate competencies. Their values are independence and self-sufficiency. They show great responsibility and commitment to the tasks they carry out. They are highly collaborative and feel good at working with people with a different style of work and communication. Taught by their parents' experience, they work to live, not live to work, and work-life balance is important to them. In most companies, representatives of the baby boomers and X generations currently hold managerial positions, make strategic decisions on the development of the companies, and manage employees from the younger Y, and Z generations. People born in the 80s and 90s are representatives of the Y generation, the so-called millennium. They are very well educated and strongly focused on success. They engage in collective activities, value partnership relations, participative decision-making, challenges and development of skills. They believe that work is important, but not the most, and they know how to distinguish work from private life, work-life balance. They expect task-oriented work and great freedom in performing their duties. They are characterized by tolerance, entrepreneurship and materialism. Hard work is not a value for them. They postpone the decision to become independent. In turn, the youngest Z generation are people born after 1995. Their oldest representatives are now entering the labor market. It is difficult to say what employees they will be, but it is worth pointing out their most important features. They do not know the world without computers, mobile phones and the internet. They are fluent in digital technologies. They are growing up in the world with no clear boundary between the private and professional life. They are strongly oriented towards challenges and achievements. They are creative, multitasking, expect great flexibility, rapid gratification and immediate feedback. From childhood, they have been prepared to compete and succeed. Researchers of this generation are afraid that it will be a generation of individualists, loners, and people focused on self-development and satisfying their own ambitions. They are described as a generation without a loyalty gene towards employers. Representatives of this generation declare that they will leave organizations that do not provide them with interesting, challenging jobs and real development opportunities. The so-called soft skills, verbal communication, adapting to the organizational culture and accepting the hierarchy are considered weak points of this generation. The situation in the labor market makes modern organizations become spaces where employees of different generations can coexist with each other. And the age difference between the oldest and the youngest can reach even several decades. On this basis, a number of challenges arise for managers and HR departments. The essence and meaning of the onboarding process. Almost every company declares that its most important resources are people in the broad sense. The introduction of an employee is a stage at which the newcomer enters the organization, thus acquiring the knowledge and skills necessary for independent performance of professional duties. The implementation process generates many costs that should be treated as an investment that brings a wide range of benefits in the long run. Onboarding is one of the most important and strategic elements of the human resource management process, and its proper implementation brings benefits to both the newly employed and the entire company. The onboarding process, also known as organizational socialization or employee adaptation, can be defined as the sum of activities in which new employees are helped to quickly and smoothly adapt to the norms of the company. Another definition of onboarding states that it is a process much more complex than the mere introduction of an employee to the organization. According to the above definition, the goal of onboarding is to make the new employee begin productive and effective performance of professional duties as soon as possible. The source literature also says that onboarding is a necessity of strategic importance for the development of the company. The definition proposed by S. Freer, 2007, considers the onboarding process as a kind of holistic approach that connects people, employees, processes and technology. The above-mentioned connector aims to optimize the influence of the new employee on the company. The presented goal of this holistic connection puts particular emphasis on efficiency and effectiveness. in the definition by H.J. Klein and the co-authors. It can be noticed that onboarding is presented as a process of transforming new employees into fully fledged team members who correspond to the organizational culture. To summarize the short analysis of the definition of onboarding, it should be noted that they all have common elements like actions, goals and assumptions that should be characteristic of a proper employee onboarding process. The introduction of a new employee is crucial for several reasons. The first is the fact that the organization engages large financial resources at the stage of finding and recruiting employees, which does not allow for the abandonment of the employee implementation process at a further stage. The second reason, which is particularly important from the perspective of the implementation of standards and job goals, is the fact that onboarding programs allow a new employee to start their highly effective work as soon as possible. The third reason why it is worth carrying out the onboarding process in a company is the fact that during its implementation the level of the employee's involvement in the performed duties increases. The goal of the onboarding processes is to create positive and attractive experiences for new employees. The basic tasks of each onboarding process include reducing stress and its symptoms, as well as gradually increasing the employee's trust towards the elements of the organization in the broad sense. Onboarding adapted to the age of employees. Each generation stands out from the others in many ways. The differences affecting the professional area include, for example, expectations, experience, values, the level of education, having a family, lifestyle or work ethic. All the above-mentioned differences between the generations can significantly affect the functioning of companies and industries. Accordingly, understanding what distinguishes generations from each other can definitely help companies customize onboarding for newly hired employees. The same onboarding process for employees of all generations may cause many difficulties related, for example, to the possibilities of acquiring knowledge, the interactivity of the process and technological solutions, the mismatch of the buddies, the work colleagues supporting the new employee, or unfulfilled expectations that were set before the implementation program. The first difficulty that should be eliminated is the assimilation capacity of the new employee. During the onboarding process, a lot of information is transferred, which can overwhelm the new employee. Therefore, it is worth remembering that employees from different generations will have different learning opportunities. The second issue is the interactivity of the onboarding process. Many sources say that technology can significantly improve the process of employee implementation because it allows for quick information finding and its subsequent assimilation. However, it is worth paying attention to the fact that technology cannot replace interaction with another human being, and this interaction definitely increases the quality of the implementation process. It should also be emphasized that some generations may find it difficult to master the online implementation process. Another issue related to the differences in the implementation process of different generations of employees may be the selection of a mentor, also known as a buddy. A buddy should be a well-chosen person because if the age difference between the buddy and the new employee is small, unconscious competition and comparisons can occur. The situation is similar when the age difference is too big because then there may be a parent-child relationship leading to defiance instead of a deepened willingness to learn. The last of the above-mentioned difficulties that may occur in the process of onboarding employees from different generations may be unfulfilled expectations. FS. Gale points out that onboarding that has been conducted in companies so far may not be enough because the youngest generation in the labor market, Z generation, has completely different expectations. For instance, they are associated with the almost immediate start of work due to professional ambitions and receiving feedback in the so-called real time, which can cause some kind of difficulties. Conclusion. Based on the analysis of the characteristics of 4 generations in companies, 3 key challenges regarding the areas of their cooperation can be identified. These are universal communication, multi-dimensional flow of information, long-term cooperation, strategic partnership and mutual trust, sense of responsibility, building joint commitment. A properly conducted adaptation process will have a proper impact on shaping communication in a multi-generational team, which will then translate into proper cooperation and involvement of employees. Having analyzed the source literature, the following research hypotheses can be proposed. H1. The onboarding process has a positive impact on communication in a multi-generational team. H2. The onboarding process has a positive impact on cooperation in a multi-generational team. H3. The onboarding process has a positive impact on commitment in a multi-generational team. H4. The assimilation capacities of a new employee facilitate the onboarding process in a multi-generational team. H5. Technology facilitates the onboarding process in a multi-generational team. H6. The role of buddies facilitates the onboarding process in a multi-generational team. H7. The new employee's expectations facilitate the onboarding process in a multi-generational team. Therefore, modern organizations must be prepared to meet the expectations of new employees coming from different generations. Moreover, organizations must design onboarding processes in a personalized way, starting them with understanding the expectations, values, attitudes and behaviors, as well as the mindset of employees of a given generation. Thank you very much for your attention.